When you think of some of the best third basemen of the 2000s, you think of names of like Alex Rodriguez, Chipper Jones, Aramis Ramirez, Adrian Beltran, of course, Miguel Cabrera, the defensive GOAT, Scott Rowland. But then there's some names that you just go unnoticed. They had some insane years, but just fizzled away just as fast. Two of those players that fizzled away being Morgan Ensburg and Hank Blalock, both of which played in the state of Texas for the majority of their prime years. When I say the majority, though, it's like a combined 5 seasons between the two of them. But boy, those were some of the 5 best seasons of the 2000s from any first baseman. First, we're going to start with Morgan Ensburg. He was born August 26, 1975, in Hermosa Beach, California. From there, he'd go on to attend the Redona Union High School in Redona Beach, California, where he was named the Daily Breeze All-Area team in both basketball and baseball in his senior year. Morgan Ensburg would go on to attend the University of Southern California and play third base, and in 1997, he played in the Collegiate Summer Games, that's the baseball games, in the Cape Cod Baseball League for the Yarmouth Dennis Red Sox. In 1998, he was an All-American and team MVP for USC on their 1998 National Championship team, and he is the only Trojan who has compiled 20 home runs and 20 stolen bases in a single season. He still holds top 10 records in 10 offensive categories. Ensburg was drafted in the 9th round of the 1998 Major League Draft. And then a funny story, I guess it's not funny, but a crazy story more or less. In spring training of 2000, he got the chance to come up and play in the big leagues. He and 5 teammates were in their hotel room when 2 gunmen bursted in. Aaron Miles was in the room next to him and wrestled one of the gunmen to the ground before the other one fled, only to be caught later on. The other players involved were Derek Nicholson, Keith Ginter, Mike Rose, and Eric Cole. And all a crazy story. It's nothing like I haven't covered before, like Yvonne Gallardo when he got robbed in Milwaukee for his watch with a team trainer. So some crazy stories happen still for these professional athletes. Later that season, though, he would be a late season call-up where he'd make his debut in September 20th, 2000, where he'd get a pinch hit at bat. But for the 4 games he was up for, he had 7 plate appearances. He struck out once, and he got 2 hits. Didn't do anything crazy, but he got some experience at the big league level. Unfortunately, though, he'd spend the next year and a half to 2 years down in the minors before getting called back up in 2002, where he'd play for 49 games, have 32 hits, 7 doubles, 2 triples, 3 homers, 19 runs batted in, and go on to bat a .242 batting average with a .346 on base. Now, after that first half season, I guess you could say, or quarter season, he would make the team at the age of 27 to stay on full time. And man, he just had a season out of nowhere. He had a 4.8 WAR in 2003, where he played in 127 games, had 112 hits, 15 doubles, 1 triple, but he knocked in 25 homers and brought in 60 runners. He also stole 7 bases, hit .291 with a .377 OBP and a .530 slugging, and also had an OPS plus of 131. Now, I personally, growing up, remember this Astros team, and it's a team that I would love to cover because I don't think it's enough credit. I just don't know how to do team season long scripts. But this is back when they had that 3-headed monster of Roy Oswalt, who is a player I want to cover. And like I said, this Astro team I just love, with Andy Pettit, Roger Clemens, and them. And then you had the triple Bs as well with Bagwell, Biggio, and Berkman. So he was the 4th horseman of this team. So going after that in 2004, he didn't have as good of a season. He only had a .5 WAR. He played in 131 games, had 113 hits, but only managed to have 10 homers, but did drive in 66 runs. He had a batting average of .275 with an OBP of .330 and a slugging of .411. Like I said, took steps back, but still had a solid to decent season. I don't think he was defensively as good as he was on the offense, and I think that probably played a part, but his OPS was only 90 that year, so he appears to have struggled at the plate more. I don't remember watching Ensburg play that much, if I'm being honest, because this is around the time where I started becoming a Brewers fan for the most part. Now, on to 2005, which was his breakout season, and honestly should have propelled him to stardom at the age of 29, where he had a 6.3 WAR. And it was an insane year. He'd make his first All-Star game. He'd get a Silver Slugger. He'd finish fourth in MVP voting. But he just had a crazy season. He had 149 hits, 30 doubles, 3 triples, 36 home runs, and he drove in 101 runs. On top of that, he'd go on to bat .283 with a .388 OBP and a .557 slug. He had an insane 144 OPS plus. Now, 144 is not that insane when you look at some of the other third basemen of this era, like I said, with Rodriguez and stuff like that. But still, this is a guy who's really only played two and a half seasons at this point in time in his career coming into this year. And at the age of 29, broke out and just had an amazing season. And it was by far the best of his career before he quickly declined after that. But he did have one more solid season in 2006, where he had a 3.5 WAR, had 23 homers, had 58 runs batted in, but only managed to bat .235. However, he did post his career best OBP, so I don't know if he just had a bad year at the plate, hitting and making contact with the ball, or what. I don't have his BABIP numbers in front of me right at this moment. But he did have a 396 OBP and a 463 slugging and had 120 OPS plus. In doing some more digging, it appears that other than Barry Bonds, he was the only player to record at least 100 walks and have fewer hits than walks in 2006. So it looks like he was just kind of getting pitched around quite a bit after his breakout season. That said, though, after that crazy season, he would regress very quickly now at age 31, and in 2007 on the trade deadline, he'd get traded to the San Diego Padres. Padres basically got him for free as part of a conditional deal. For the season between the two teams, he had a negative .2 WAR, where he would go on to only hit 12 homers and drive in 39 runs with a .230 batting average, a .320 on base, and a .404 slugging, and have an OPS plus of 88. He did play better in San Diego, but it was just not looking good. And then after the season, he would be let go, and he'd sign with the Yankees, where he'd play for 28 games and almost have a negative -1 WAR. He only had 1 home run, only drove in 4 runs, and basically batted .203, .263, .243 for slugging, had a 34 OPS plus, and that was basically the end of Morgan Ensburg's career. Later on, he'd go on to sign him on June 17th with the Indians, but they didn't really call him back up. Once again, would sign in 2009 with the Rays, was released at the end of spring training, and after that, he decided to retire from baseball and then started his own public blog and tried to get into a broadcasting career. Fun fact about him is he is the only player in MLB history to have won championship rings in college, rookie league, single A, double A, triple A, and have played in a World Series. So that's a fun fact. For his very short, brief 8-year career, we'll say 8 years in quotations, Ensburg had a 13.8 WAR in 731 games, where he had 110 homers, drove in 347 runs, and had a slash line of .263, .362, .468 with an OPS plus of 113. Like I said, he only had 1 All-Star game, 1 Silver Slugger, and finished 4th in MVP voting in 2005. But like I said, he was a flash in the pan career. Very short, helped the Astros kind of make that World Series run. I believe that was in 05. I don't know, math's not my strong suit. Kind of helped carry the rest of the Astros out, the Triple Bs and the pitching staff out, and before they started that massive rebuild that we'd see in the late 2000s and early 2010s. Now we're going to move on to Hank Blalock. He would go on to attend Rancho Bernardo High School in San Diego, California, where he'd be drafted in the 3rd round by the Texas Rangers in the 1999 MLB draft. Hank had a very, very successful minor league career, but was brought to prominence with his huge numbers in 2000 and 2001, where he would put up the cycle twice in 1 week, which really established him as one of the top prospects in all of MLB. He would begin the 2002 season as the Rangers' starting 3rd baseman, and he'd make his debut actually on April 1st, 2002, but after a slow start was sent back to the minors, where he spent almost the rest of the year in AAA. For his first season, though, Hank did have a meh season, obviously, like as I said, .03 negative WAR. He did have 3 homers, 17 runs batted in, had a slash line of .211, .306, and .327. Now, he would basically spend the whole year in 2003 up where he had a 6.4 WAR in 143 games and would make his first All-Star game. In the year, he had 29 homers, 90 RBIs, and would go on to have a slash line of 300, 350, and 522 with an OPS plus of 117. In 2004, Hank would go on to have another solid year, in fact, a really good year, where he had a 4.6 WAR in 159 games with 32 home runs, 110 runs batted in, with a triple slash of 276, 355, and 500 with an OPS plus of 113, where he'd once again make an All-Star game and go on to finish 18th in MVP rankings. In 05, he did take some of a step back, and it really kind of seemed like he was, the second fiddle to Cher at this point in time. He had a .3 WAR in 161 games, where he had 25 homers and 92 runs batted in. He did have a 263, 318, and 431 slash line, and an OPS dropped down to 93. In 06, he once again would struggle, where he had a .3 WAR in 152 games, where he hit 16 homers and 89 RBIs, with a triple slash line of 266, 325, and 401 with an 86 OPS plus. Now in 07, he underwent surgery for thoracic outlet syndrome, and this is where it really kind of turned his career upside down and ultimately probably costed him his career. He only played in 58 games, undergo surgery for thoracic outlet syndrome in May 2007 to remove his first rib, but he would return in the lineup until the end of September. During 2008, he would hurt his hamstring, place him on DL again, and he would return in May 18th, 2008. However, with his thoracic outlet syndrome and some other issues, the Rangers would move him to first base after Teixeira's departure. However, that was shortly lived, as just some first baseman by the name of Chris Crash Davis would emerge, and he'd be temporarily moved to third before eventually switching position with Davis to avoid more shoulder problems. After the season, they kind of let him go in 2009, and then he'd sign a one-year deal with the Rays in 2010 before ultimately retiring after that year. From 2007, 2008, 2009, he basically only played in about 2 seasons worth of games, and in that time, he hit about 50 homers and a little over 130 RBIs. His batting average was better, and I think some of that had to do with the fact that the surgery kind of alleviated some things, but 2009, it really kind of dropped back off for him. And he had over 100 OPS plus. I think he was averaging like 115 OPS plus in those seasons. But 2009, he really fell off. In 2010, he signed with the Rays, where he played only 26 games. He had 1 home run, knocked in 7 runs. Really just didn't look like himself, and ultimately decided to retire. Now, both of these players, as I said, had really good, really short careers in the 2000s, and I think had Morgan Ensburg maybe came up a hair earlier and got some more playing time earlier in his career where he could have actually developed, he might have seen a little bit more success in the front of his career, but he also got a later start, as where Blalock came up early, had a lot of health problems, and just kind of disappeared. I don't know. If you guys like this new format of the video, let me know. I'm going to try and get back into recording these and doing YouTube videos again. It's really hard to sit down and write a script, so this was more of a reading off of different sources I had, as well as Baseball Reference, a little more free range, less scripted video. So if you like this and you got this far, thanks for watching. If you'd like to leave a like or subscribe, please do so. But mostly in the comments below, let me know players or like things like this that you'd like to see. Like I said, I am a millennial and I love the 2000s, late 90s to early 2010s baseball. And I would like to do a video on why I think that's the golden age of baseball, but that's probably going to be an hour-long video to write and record and edit, and I'm not good at editing videos. So leave a comment down below. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you next time. Bye.